Are we headed for a recession?
Warning! Warning! Warning!
Hey, what is up? Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. If you are here, that means you have a concern about personal finance, money management, and overall financial planning. Well, my name is Keith Wilson. I'm a practicing financial advisor here to help people along their personal finance journey, right? So here's a question I'm getting a lot lately, which is, hey, Keith, are we headed for a recession? I mean, look, we got the highest inflation rate in over 40 years, rising interest rates, supply chains breaking down, this war with Russia and Ukraine, all of this stuff. So, hey, it's no surprise that you may think we are headed for a recession, right? Listen, nobody can predict exactly when a recession will occur, but there are certain signs or triggers or warning signals, whatever you want to call it, that will point to one. So let's put this into perspective here. So first of all, a recession is when, the economy contracts, people are spending less money, and it's usually accompanied by high unemployment. So let's see where we are right now. Here we are in April 2022. The current unemployment rate as of April 2022 is 3.6% and has steadily been declining since the peak of COVID in 2020. So it's hard to have a recession when you are near full employment, but that doesn't mean it can't change. And what about that pesky inflation rate? Now, the current inflation rate of 8.5%, it's a big concern, and it should be. It could cause consumers to curtail spending, and what happens after that, companies may have to eliminate jobs. And now another thing to look at is the Consumer Confidence Index, and what that is, that can indicate that a recession is on the horizon. So if consumers' confidence, hey, it's declining, then it indicates that they will spend less. And we are seeing a steady decline in consumer confidence. However, sometimes a recession, it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when there is so much pent-up pessimism out there, the economy, then the activity stops. Everybody's scared. And that's when we start to see growth slow down. Now, one of the most closely watched indicators of a recession is the Treasury yield curve inversion. Now, what is that? One in particular that we look at is the difference between a 2-year Treasury yield and a 10-year Treasury yield. So typically what happens is the longer the maturity, the higher the rate. So when a shorter maturity Treasury, like the 2-year, when it pays a higher yield than the 10-year, it's become inverted. So what does that mean? All right. It means investors are not so confident about the short term, and the demand for the short-term rates are higher since the sentiment is riskier in the short term. Now, the 2-year and the 10-year yield curve, here's the thing, it did invert in late March, so we got a warning signal there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a recession will occur immediately, okay? Over the last 6 recessions, it took over 18 months on average before a recession occurred when that yield curve inverted. Also, that 2 and 10-year yield curve, that's not a perfect indicator. There have been a few times when it inverted, but it was a false positive and a recession did not occur. So in my opinion, I think the 3-month and the 10-year Treasury yield curve is a more accurate indicator of an upcoming recession. Let me give you an example. Over the last 6 recessions, the 3-month and 10-year Treasury yield inverted every time prior to the recession with no false positives. where do we stand now? Currently, this yield curve has not inverted, and it really has a pretty healthy spread. So now it's important to note that the technical definition of a recession is when the GDP, that's the gross domestic product, when the GDP has 2 quarters in a row of negative growth, that's when we're in a recession. So you really won't know if we are in a recession until 6 months later. And the GDP is really, all that is, it's a measurement of how healthy the economy is. If it's positive, then that means there is growth. If it's negative, that means the economy, it's contracting. And the last time we had negative growth in the economy was in the second quarter of 2020. So where do we stand now? The current forecast for the first quarter of 2022 is 1.1%. So while the U.S. economy may be slowing a bit, it's not negative yet. So there are many firms out there, what they're doing, they're forecasting a low risk of recession in 2022 based on all these indicators we talked about. But you know what? That doesn't mean it can't change. And that's why it's important for you to talk with your financial professional to see, if any adjustments need to be made.